Wanna look like an idiot? Write a genius. Sister Sage and Ozymandias are the exact same character. Smartest person alive, polymath, and the antagonistic mastermind in a hyper-violent superhero deconstruction filled with lots and lots and lots of gore. But one of them is praised as the smartest villain in all of fiction, while the other gets called an idiot by her show's own fans. And no, before the keyboard warriors click off, this isn't the internet being racist or sexist. We loved Mr. Terrific, we loved Princess Bubblegum. This is a writing problem. There are 3 things that separate a real genius from someone LARPing as one. Miss Even one, and the only idiot in the room is the writer. The first difference between these 2 evil geniuses is that one is too smart and the other one is actually smart. And no, you didn't hear that wrong. Too smart means a genius so impossibly smart, they snap your suspension of disbelief in half. Because being a genius doesn't mean you can see the future or be an all-knowing god. Even the smartest people in history have made predictions that aged like milk. Oppenheimer being one, as he deeply regretted creating the atomic bomb. But a better example would be Sir Francis Galton. He was the greatest statistician to have ever lived. He was the person to discover regression to the mean and the inventor of the weather map. He was also the person who introduced the use of surveys and questionnaires for collecting data on communities. But none of that is how he's known even to most statisticians, because Francis Galton is best known for creating and naming eugenics. And he was so wrong about it that it overshadowed every other part of his legacy. Let me put the difference in the most simple way I can, through the audience's reaction. The too smart character does something brilliant and the audience goes, yeah, that's impossible. No one could have thought of that. The actually smart character does something brilliant and the audience goes, holy cheeseballs, why didn't I think of that? The actually smart genius's logic is something you can follow. The too smart genius's logic runs circles around you until you have no clue whether everything is going according to their plan or if everything is going wrong. It's like that quote, any idiot can be complicated. It takes a genius to be simple. And that's the biggest trap writers fall into when writing a genius. They overcomplicate the mastermind's plan because they mistook complexity for intelligence. Now, an easy way to make a genius believable is to narrow the scope of their genius, because that's how real geniuses actually work. It's why the higher you climb in education, the narrower the subject gets. Einstein was a physics prodigy and famously awkward in a room full of people. The charismatic Saul Goodman can read and manipulate anyone in the room, but can't pass a chem exam and make math that is 99% pure. But Sister Sage and Ozymandias are both polymath, supposedly brilliant at everything, which should make them the 2 hardest geniuses on earth to pull off. The difference being that one of them nails it and the other one got nailed by the deep. Sister Sage is often described as what an idiot thinks a genius looks like, and honestly, it's pretty darn accurate, because for some reason, people think the only thing geniuses do when they open their mouth is quote Shakespeare. So let's get into her master plan in season 4. She radicalizes his base, manufactures tension between his supporters and the Starlighters, wins over VP Victoria Newman, everyone's favorite secret head popper, to their side, strong arms billionaires into treason, and turns private prisons into internment camp for dissenters. The logic being, if the president dies, the VP takes over and you get a world where soups rule with zero oversight. Then she sends a shape-shifting assassin disguised as Starlight to kill President-elect Robert Singer, a guy who wants more laws regulating soups. It fails, but she walks away with footage of Singer complaining about a failed attempt on Newman's life, which she can spin to frame Singer as the one who wanted Newman dead. Cut to the finale, Butcher suddenly gets tentacle powers and kills Newman. Sage turns to Homelander and tells him Newman's death was the plan all along, and that she mostly did it just to see if she could. She drops the footage, Singer gets arrested for a murder he didn't commit, and that leaves Calhoun, who promptly calls Homelander, swears allegiance, declares martial law, greenlights a soup police force, and hands Homelander the keys to the country. I'm not even going to mention season 5 yet, but you see the problem, right? Almost everything leading up to her master plan is a pile of stuff that just happened. And then she leans back, lights the metaphorical cigarette, strokes the metaphorical cat's back, and claims everything is going according to plan. TV Tropes calls it the Gambit Roulette, a plan so convoluted it depends on a dozen things going perfectly right, every one of them down to pure chance, and somehow they all land. The test is dead simple. If your reaction to the plan working is, there's no way you could have known that that would happen. It's a roulette wheel, not a plan. The only way it flies is if the character is basically a god, a psychic, or a super intelligent AI, and even then it's hanging on by a thread. Her whole plan is a gambit roulette. The biggest one I'll point to is Victoria Newman's death. The linchpin of her entire endgame is Newman has to die so I can frame Singer for it. So watch the chain that actually delivers that death, not the one link of which Sage controls. Butcher's brain tumor has been secretly suppressing latent tentacle powers. His hallucination of Joe Kessler pushes him toward the deep end. Ryan accidentally kills Grace Mallory in a rage. That event triggers Butcher's power to finally emerge. Newman independently decides to defect and ally with the boys. Butcher chooses to kill her at that exact moment instead of taking the alliance. 6 links. Every single one driven by random chance or somebody else's free will. None of them controllable by Sage, mind you. And she stands there claiming she drew up the whole thing. She supposedly planned that Butcher would kill Newman so she could frame Singer despite befriending her, mind you. But how did she bank on Butcher killing Newman when the boys had proven completely incapable of touching her all season? Her master plan depends on information she could not possibly have had. And the show doesn't even try to explain how she planned around it. And it makes even less sense when you learn her endgame in season 5. She wants to watch the whole world burn while she sits in her bunker reading a book, Scorched Earth. And for that, she needs Homelander dead. So why did she spend all of season 4 building Homelander into a god instead of just helping the boys take him down? By everything we knew about her beforehand, the government and the non-soups weren't bothering her at all. She already had the quiet life she wanted, alone with her books. And in the end, her plan collapses because she couldn't predict love. A father helping his own son. Except the show already told us through Psychic Ashley that Soldier Boy is secretly proud of Homelander. He already had the information. And you cannot be a master manipulator without understanding emotions. That's the literal job description. But the second the plot needs an exit, she's suddenly the cold genius who doesn't get love. Oh boo-hoo, pick one. And Eric Kripke, the showrunner, basically admitted the problem himself. He said, writing dumb characters is way easier than writing smart ones. And at getting into Sage's headspace was rough. In his own words, we're not nearly as smart as her. On the surface, that sounds like a fair excuse, but it's really just a load of bullcrap. Yeah, you're not as smart as her, but you've got a whole room of writers and a hell of a lot of time. Think, Kripke, think. The actual tip for writing a genius is using your time well. Something that takes you and your writer's room 3 months to crack. You just write that you figured it out in 3 days. Use every advantage you have, especially the time advantage. So that's how you make a genius look like an idiot. Now here's the man who does the exact opposite. A character I'd call the smartest villain in all of fiction. Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias, or as his good friend describes him,
possible homosexual.
So, what was his master plan? I'll tell you in a bit, but just so you know, the whole plot of the movie kicks off because of something Veidt says he couldn't predict. It starts with the comedian's death. The comedian's a retired hero, the government's dog on a leash, keeping tabs on the old Watchmen for President Nixon. He stumbles onto Veidt's plan, and the comedian, a genuinely ruthless, monstrous man, does the one thing Veidt swears even he couldn't have predicted. He's so horrified by what he finds, he has a change of heart, so Veidt kills him before he can talk. Then he needs to neutralize Dr. Manhattan, a literal god who can see the future. So Veidt sinks $2 billion into tachyon research, particles that scramble Manhattan's view of the future. Now, the god who sees everything is suddenly blind, and he assumes that blind spot can only mean one thing: nuclear Armageddon. But blinding him isn't enough. Veidt also used his psychology to manipulate him. He's known Manhattan long enough to know the guy isn't actually emotionless. He can read it in the subtle twitches on his face that nobody else would catch. To Veidt, John might as well be sobbing. So he tugs the string. He engineers it so Manhattan comes to believe he gave cancer to everyone he ever loved, for a being who's supposedly beyond feeling. That guilt is all it takes. John exiles himself to Mars, neutralized, without a single punch even thrown. He even stages a hit on himself, hires a gunman, and plays the victim. And before the shooter can say a word, he conveniently bites down on a cyanide capsule, one which later was revealed that Veidt crammed into his mouth. The whole point of it was to look like a target and not the mastermind, feeding Rorschach's mass killer theory and pointing it at anywhere but at himself. He then kills Moloch and tips off the police, framing Rorschach for a murder to get his stubborn ass off the board too. And finally, the most important part of his plan. He'd been building reactors with Manhattan, telling him they were for free infinite energy. They weren't. Veidt detonates them to make it look like Manhattan himself vaporized several major cities, killing millions in an instant. A staged horror designed to scare the world's superpowers out of nuclear war. Because if there's one thing that unites humanity, it's a threat big enough to wipe all of us out. It's kind of why I think the only thing that will ever truly end racism are aliens showing up. And then we just upgrade to speciesism. Now compare that to Sage. Her master plan was 6 links of pure dumb luck she slapped her name on at the very end. Veidt's is the exact opposite. Every critical piece engineered, pressure tested, years in the making. And the one thing he genuinely couldn't predict, the comedian's change of heart, he adapted to it and cleaned it up on the fly, along with everything that happened due to his death. That right there is the whole difference. That's actually smart versus too smart. But perhaps the most potent tool in his arsenal, the thing that cemented him as the smartest villain ever put to film, is something called the trope subversion. That's where you take a tired trope and play it the way it would actually go if a genuinely smart person were standing in that scene. Think horror movies. The group always splits up, even though anyone with a brain knows you stick together. Veidt does the smart thing. There's a classic trope where the villain monologues his entire evil plan to the heroes, and that little delay is exactly what lets them swoop in and stop it at the last second. So, does Ozymandias monologue? Of course he does. Every self-respecting narcissist would. But there's one crucial difference, because at the end of his monologue he says,
"You know we can't let you do that."
Do that, Rorschach? I'm not a comic book villain. Do you seriously think I'd explain my masterstroke to you if there were even the slightest possibility you could affect the outcome? I triggered it 35 minutes ago.
Probably the coldest line in the movie. He was already established as a smart villain, but that line is what cements him as the smartest one in all of fiction. Another thing that sells him as the real genius is that not everything goes his way. The comedian was one example. The bigger one is in the finale. When Dr. Manhattan comes back to Earth, Veidt sacrifices his cat, genuinely the most evil thing he does throughout the movie, to disintegrate Manhattan and think he's won, except Manhattan, being a god, just reassembles himself. So Veidt goes to his backup. It's the Batman approach to genius. Always have a backup for your backup. He turns on a wall of TVs and shows Manhattan the result of everything. World peace. The United States and the Soviets uniting against the Manhattan threat. Nuclear war averted. And then he wins the argument. He convinces Manhattan and the others, everyone except Rorschach, that exposing him now would only send the world spiraling right back to the brink. And the millions who died to save billions would have died for nothing. That's actually the best part. Watching his plan hit a wall he never saw coming, Manhattan coming back, his first kill failing, and watching him pivot to a completely different play and still win. That's what makes him a genius. Not that he predicted everything, but that he adapted when his predictions turned out to be wrong. There's a quote the whole internet pins on Stephen Hawking. Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. Plot twist, he never said it. It's a misattributed line everyone just decided was Hawking's and never bothered enough to check, which for a video about intellect, yeah. But the idea is right, and it's the exact line between Veidt and Sage. One adapted, the other got lucky and took credit for it, right up until the luck ran out. Guys, if you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm trying to get more subscribers than Benjamin Netanyahu by the end of this year, so it'll be great if we can beat him. Also, join the Discord and you can vote and talk to me about what ideas you want to be made into videos next. But being the right amount of smart isn't the only thing that makes a well-written genius. The second difference is sort of an extension of the first. You have to show their genius, not just tell us about it. And what better way to show it than to throw competent people at them? People who push back on intellect or on something else entirely, or what I like to call the worthy adversary. Your genius needs a worthy opponent.
Finally, a worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary!
Someone who makes them work for it. Someone who ruins their perfect plan and make it into a knife fight instead of a victory lap. The best written geniuses are surrounded by people who are genuinely smart, just not as smart as them. Light has L, Sherlock Holmes has Moriarty, and it goes beyond just the rivals. The police force chasing Light and Watson himself are no pushovers either. They're smart too. The genius just operates at a level above your typical smart person. And the best worthy adversaries are also foils. No, not the kind you wrap around your head to block the homo race the government beams at you to make you gay. You guys were those two, right? A foil is a character who makes someone else's qualities pop by being their opposite. Now obviously not a foil on the intellectual level, but more of a thematic or philosophical one. L is a moral foil to Light. They're worthy adversaries, two matched geniuses in a real battle of wits, and they're foils on two axes. Morally, both claim to serve justice. Light imposes order through mass murder and wants to be a god of a new world. L chases truth through detection, and their surfaces invert their realities. Light is the beloved golden boy hiding a monster. L is the slouching, sweets-eating weirdo who's the actual moral force. So the contrast, the foil, reveals Light's a monster, while the matched intellect, the adversary, proves he's brilliant. Moriarty is Holmes' intellectual equal and his dark mirror. The same genius pointed the opposite way. One restoring order, the other orchestrating chaos. Watson, while not an adversary, is a worthy ally. He's competent. He's what a smart, normal person will think. And Holmes, operating above even him, is what makes the genius visible by contrast. Now look at Sister Sage. Does she have a worthy adversary? Or a worthy ally perhaps? Let's look at her allies first. Homelander? No, he's not really that bright, except when it comes to getting milk. Firecracker? The only thing she's smarter than is a goldfish. Deep? He's the goldfish. She's got nobody to reflect her intelligence off of because she's surrounded by morons. And in a room full of idiots, anyone can look like Einstein. Now, Lazy Rider will dumb everyone else down on purpose to prop the genius up. Never do that. It doesn't make the genius look smart, it just makes everyone else look dumb. The boys, well, they didn't even have to. The 7 in season 4 were already filled with idiots, so there was never anyone near Sage's level to act as the lens that make the genius more visible. Now, how about her foes? The boys. Well, I'ma be honest, the boys never really had a genius or anyone all that smart. Frenchie's a great engineer and a chemist, but nobody on the team is a tactician or a strategist. Their whole game plan amounts to try something, say F it, and making it through it anyway. They never had a long-term plan to kill Homelander. They're a do it first, deal with the consequences later kind of squad. Even in season 1 where the boys were arguably at their peak writing wise, they just grabbed Translucent with zero idea how to kill him, then stumble into the carbon skin weakness by accident. The boys win on grit, improvisation, and a willingness to do ugly things rather than outthinking anyone. Their plans are a direction, plus a high tolerance for chaos, so no real worthy adversary there either. The boys never actually challenged her, like she says herself in the season 4 finale after everything they threw at her.
This is the plan.
This is the plan. Now contrast that zero with Ozymandias' 3 worthy adversaries. First up, Rorschach, a detective who, for some reason, has a picture of my parents fighting on his face. He's one of the main people we follow, and the movie goes out of its way to show that his detective skills are unparalleled. He's the one who deduces that the comedian's death was no random burglary gone wrong, the way the cops wrote it off. His reasoning that no ordinary burglar could overpower a former superhero and hurl him through a window, so the killer was a professional, which kicks off his mass killer theory. It's wrong, but it's a hell of a lot closer than anything the police had. He's relentless, won't be stopped by anything, and a few wikis straight up call him the world's greatest detective of the Watchmen universe. So what does Ozymandias do? He weaponizes the guy's relentlessness against him, quietly steering him in the wrong direction. That's the whole point of staging the hit on himself. It makes Rorschach's mass killer theory look more credible and points it at anywhere but himself. His second worthy adversary is a literal god. Vate scrambles Dr. Manhattan's view of the future, then gets him off-world entirely by manipulating him, because he's paid enough attention to catch the subtle twitches that tells him Manhattan still feels like a man, and he pulls that thread until John exiles himself to Mars. And his third adversary, someone who is possibly smarter than the world's greatest detective, and more omnipotent than an omnipotent god, it's you, the audience. Watchmen is built like a murder mystery. The whole movie you're playing detective right alongside Rorschach, sifting the same clues, trying to crack who's killing the masks. Then Veidt monologues, points at every clue you walk straight past, and it all snaps into place. Holy balls, this guy is smart. He didn't just outsmart the character, he outsmarted the audience as well. That's 3 worthy adversaries he had to conquer to Sister Sage's 0. But say we fix everything, say we rewrite the boy so Sage isn't too smart, she's actually smart, and we hand her a worthy adversary and a worthy ally to act as foils, she'd still be a bad character. Because those first 2 differences are what makes the believable genius. This third one is just to remind you, their job in the story isn't just to be smart and aura farm. I want to remind you all that despite being a genius, they're still a character in the story. They need to be given proper character arcs and endings. Please don't just use them as a plot device or as glue to hold your plot together. This difference is called they're still a character. You see, Ozymandias and Sister Sage actually get pretty much the same ending. Both walk away basically scot-free after doing monstrous things, but one ending fits the character and the story, while the other torches everything the show is trying to say. We'll start with Ozymandias, because I'm rewriting Sage's ending right after. He ends millions of lives, frames Dr. Manhattan, and walks away clean. While Rorschach, the one man who refuses to compromise his ideals, gets vaporized because he doesn't know who Steve Jobs is. Bad guys win, good guys lose, right? Not exactly, because Watchmen was never a clean-cut superhero story. It's all about them grays. Does the end justify the means? And by the finale, you've got a perfect, conflict-free world bought with the blood of millions. It's a trolley problem at the scale of a planet. It's left to the audience for them to think for themselves. Was Ozymandias right? Or did he just dress up cold villainy as logic? Is it actually worth killing millions to save billions? The movie sets his pragmatism against Rorschach's absolute morality, never compromise, even in the face of Armageddon, then refuses to tell you who's correct. Ozymandias gets away because we're genuinely not even sure that he's the villain. From Rorschach's perspective, the one we're following, sure. But what if the nukes really would have flown if he didn't do what he did? He essentially did save billions at the cost of a couple million. We even hear him admit he agonized over it, that it cut against everything he believes. Sometimes the hard choice isn't the easy one, and he wasn't going to sit on his butt while the world walked itself to the brink. I should also note that the movie actually leaves the ending open-ended by showing us Rorschach's journal showing up at a news outlet, so all that might have even been just for nothing. Even more grays. Now contrast that with The Boys. It's also a grim deconstruction of superheroes, but its themes are way more clean. The main essence of it is that your sins will come crawling on your back. Doesn't matter if you changed. Gruesome deeds earn a gruesome end. Kripke said it himself in an interview with Rolling Stones. I want to live in a moral universe where when you choose love, family, and mercy, good things happen to you. Homelander, a god who murdered for his own ego, dies reduced to a child begging for mercy. The Deep dies because he's a narcissistic asshole who never cared whose life he ruined. Victoria Newman, the secret head pauper who spent the whole series exploding people from the inside, she gets torn apart by Butcher, killed by the exact body horror she dealt out. And it cuts both ways, even on the good guy's side. Butcher dies for a past drenched in murder, and because right to the end, he couldn't let go of his dream of wiping out every soup. Frenchie dies for the innocent people he killed back when he worked for the Russian mob. Everyone who survived because they were genuinely good people. Huey, Starlight, even Queen Maeve, none of them ever did anything truly monstrous. The only one who breaks the rule is Sister Sage. Well, her and Bot stan Edgar, but that's a video for another day. And let's be clear, Sage isn't some innocent bystander in all this. She helped Homelander get away with murder, helped him kill a lot of people, and put people into Homelander happy camps. She's about as innocent as Stalin's right-hand man signing off on the gulags, arguably worse because she was the brains of the operation. She orchestrated it. Someone with that resume does not get to skip off to Harry Potter world, happily depowered, and call it an ending. She did all of it and walked away scot-free. That's what actually made people mad. Everyone else got the justice the show promised, and she somehow somehow managed to get 10 points for Gryffindor. So let's really rewrite it and dispense a little justice of our own. The show gave her a happy ending. I'd have stolen from the Twilight Zone instead. Here's what Time Enough at Last would have done with her. And I'll also try to keep as much of the back half of the show intact as I can. So we're not rewriting the whole mid-finale because that would be too much work. And I got a job outside YouTube. Maybe in the future. The first change we're making is that Sister Sage does not defect to the boys. Instead, she bets that Butcher and Homelander will tear each other apart, scorched earth style. Exactly what the marketing promised and the show never delivered. So she helps the boys quietly from the shadows, just enough to put them on even footing with Homelander. Enough to kill him, but enough to get plenty of them killed too. Then she seals herself in her bunker, cut off from the world, because she's counting on Homelander dying, and she finally gets to be left alone. She gets her happy ending, but word reaches her through a backup yeet she set up in case things went sideways about Butcher. Ryan's left him. Terror's dead. The man has nothing left to live for, and nobody has the guts to stop him from unleashing the virus. So she spends her time rebuilding the Soldier Boy depowering ray. The exact how doesn't matter, and she depowers herself. At first, she's happy. It's what she wanted, to be as dumb as the rest of you, she says. And then she picks up one of her books, and something's wrong. The words don't mean anything. It's like reading a language she's never seen, because when the powers vanished, so did everything she ever learned through them. Because once you think about it, she had never actually learned how to do anything. Her superpower was doing all the work. She tries to leave the bunker, but the only way out is some endless series of locks and combinations and doohickeys that only smart Sage could crack, because of course she made her own mind the password, a door only she could open. Or maybe she's never imagined it could go wrong and built no way out at all. Doesn't matter, she's stuck. So she gets exactly what she wanted, and it mirrors the Twilight Zone ending I think they were trying to reference. She gets her wish, but loses the ability to enjoy that very wish. Not smart enough to enjoy it, not smart enough to escape it, but just smart enough to be miserable. A monkey's paw ending. Justice. And right in line with how everyone else in the cast goes out. She never directly killed anyone, so she never directly dies. She just gets handed back every ounce of suffering she put on everyone else. The end. Well, that's my ending. I think it's better than the one we got at least. Tell me what you think below. Also, if you can actually defend the Harry Potter world send-off, if you think she earned that exit, make the case below in the comments because like I really couldn't. Or write a better ending than mine. I'm excited to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Merb out.